All right. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right. Today is Dad Talk Friday, where I either bring a dad on to talk about what is important to him, or I discuss a topic from the perspective of a man, a husband, or father, or some blend of all three, most likely the latter. All right. And today we are going to talk about bullies. I don't have a dad scheduled for today, but if you are a dad and you would like to come on and talk about something that's important to you in the context of being a dad, please reach out. I would love to talk with you. Right? It could be anything. You could just be like, look, I had one dad. He was a brand new dad, and he was looking forward to enjoying sports with his son. He wanted to be like the little league coach and the football coach. Like, cool, awesome. And he joined. We talked about it, and it was great. So it doesn't have to be. Don't let it get in your head that you've got to be doing something amazing that people are going to be like, wow, bro. No, if you're a dad, you already are amazing, right? We just want to hear your voice. I want to lift up dad voices. So please reach out. It'll be a great conversation. Before we dive into today's topic about bullies, I do want to mention that next week I have scheduled Steve Feldman for U.S. House out of North Carolina, U.S. District 10, and then Reese Wood, Janesville City Council, Wisconsin, Andrew Underwood, 14th Congressional District out of Georgia, and then Alan Buckley, U.S. Senate for Georgia. I've got 4 interviews lined up next week. If you are a candidate running for office, please reach out. Go to candidates.libertydad.com. You can check it in the show notes. There's a link. It'll go there, sign yourself up, get yourself booked to be on the show. I'm doing interviews, and that's great. I love it. I love talking to candidates and dads. Everybody else, no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I might like to talk to you if you're not one of those too, but those are my primaries. All right, March 16th through 20th. That's going to be my son's spring break, and I have not yet decided if I'm going to stream that week. And the reason for that is we have 2 projects that I'm working on with him. Number one, he has to do a report on a historical site in Florida, and we're going to go to the National Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola. That's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to be out of town. I don't know which particular days we're going to go. And then this is the cool part. We're also going to spend that week working on a Pinewood Derby car because he's in Cub Scouts, and we are going to work on this together. We're going to film it. Maybe I'll even do a show about it. I don't know. I'm really going to focus more on actually building it and just enjoying it and maybe filming a little bit. So if we get out of hand and the Cub Scout masters, like, is that what they call them? I don't know what they call them. I should know, but I don't. Anyway, if his Cub Scout leader's like, this doesn't look like he did it, I'm going to pull out the video and be like, no, he did the actual work. So we're going to have a little bit of fun doing that. So I'll let you guys know as we get closer whether or not I will be streaming that week, or if maybe I just drop a couple videos. It may be that I just drop a couple videos that week and just kind of do it at my convenience. So anyway, look forward to that. All right, bullies. Now, this is not my first go discussing bullies. You might remember episode 210, Handling Bullies. I offered advice like building confidence early. Fighting might sometimes be necessary. I know adults never like hearing that. Nonviolent alternatives do work. The guys that are out there, and which I'll be showing you a clip of here in a moment, but there are guys out there that act like, the only answer to bullies is to just dot their I or bloody their nose. No, nonviolent alternatives also work. And then telling adults is often actually bad advice. Those are the things that I discussed in episode 210. And then in episode 312, Bullies again, I reiterate much of what I talked about in episode 210 in light of a 10-year-old boy who was bullied to the point of committing suicide. Absolute, just awful, awful story. I also pointed out that adults, I reiterated that adults often have well-meaning advice, but that it often fails, and I describe why, in that video. And I draw upon a 2011 documentary called Bully. So the topic of bullies is always relevant as long as there are parents. If there are parents, which means there are children, it's always going to be relevant. Because what I said back in those episodes, somebody might have heard, but somebody today that's a new listener or a new parent, they may not have seen that. So unfortunately, bullies aren't going anywhere. Parents, we have to address them. And I like to address things in a very practical manner, like what actually really works. And let's have a frank conversation. So we're going to do that today. Today's video is kind of spurred by a guy named Cole Da Silva. I really don't know much about him. I think he's a life coach. Some of his videos popped up in my feed, and I was like, I kind of bristled at him. And I'm going to show them to you. And it was about bullies. And he's one of the tough guys. Like, he looks tough. He talks tough. He might actually be tough. I don't know. I'm not going to dog on him because I don't really know much about him, and that's not my thing. I'm just going to criticize, or critique maybe is probably a better word, what I heard in some of these videos, and we're going to draw some lessons off of that. So let me play this first video. We're just going to dive right into it. And let's see what we got here. Here we are.
I will 100% teach my son, beat the shit out of kids who make fun of you. Words do not solve problems. Bullies are not going to stop unless you punch them in the mouth. And anybody who says, use your words and have a conversation has never been bullied. Words do not solve it. If anything, they're just going to call you gay or call you soft or make fun of you more because you want to have a soft conversation. Just punch them in the face and move on with your life.
Oh, well, all right. And he's wrong. So let me tell you this. I have been bullied. I have been in one-on-one fights. I have been in a couple of multiple-on-one fights. That's both sides of that story. I have been in multiple car chases. I've been threatened by alleged gang members. Basically, it may not look like it looking at me because you're like, man, you got a nice shirt on. You're wearing a woodworking hat. You know, you seem like you're a libertarian, so you oppose war and violence. DL, you can't possibly have been through. No, I've been through plenty. Okay. I am very seasoned when it comes to discussing the issue of bullies and fighting. And I'm going to tell you, Cole Da Silva is wrong. Okay. When he says like, oh, words don't, no, words can. See, here's the difference. And this is where the problem lies. You seem to have one of two choices. Words don't work, like ever. Words do work, like all the time. And neither are actually the case. Sometimes words can work. Sometimes, yeah, you might actually need to get into a fight. You might have to, okay? But as far as credential goes, I got him. Okay, I could tell you story after story of conflict that I was in. And the really cool part about that, if you want to label it as cool, is that almost all of them were before I left high school. It's Michael Malice who has this comment, and I should have pulled it up, but he says something to the effect of, most violence that any person experiences in their life will almost entirely be in a public school setting. And it's true. Once I graduated high school, like the fights or the altercations or the potential fights, those all started to drop dramatically. I still got into a few dust-ups in my early 20s, but like once I hit 18, the idea of getting in a fight with somebody, like it just dropped. Because all of a sudden, it's like I'm in this new world. You go from the teen world to the adult world, and literally, things change overnight. I'll give you a couple of examples. I graduated school, and I didn't have tons of friends. I had a few, but I didn't have tons of friends. And it was really weird. I didn't have a lot of enemies, per se, but I just didn't really click with a lot of the kids. And it was so weird because like I graduated, I'd be driving down the road and somebody would see me, they'd recognize my car, they would recognize me, and they'd be like waving. And I'm like, hi? Why would I do that? Because we weren't friends in high school, but you would pass people and all of a sudden like people that barely talk to you, all of a sudden seem to want to be like, hey, how's it going? And you're like, hi, I guess. Right. Like things just changed. When I got one of my first jobs, which was at Rent-A-Center, the boss that I had, who I became really good friends with, he was somebody, we both agreed this. He was the jock in school. We both agreed this. He would not have been friends with me in high school. But for some reason, we became adults and things practically changed overnight. You know, because I was probably like 20, maybe when I was working at Rent-A-Center. So it's not exactly like, maybe 21, but it wasn't very old. Like it hadn't been long enough for any significant change to occur. Yet there were, the change did occur. We were on very good terms. I wouldn't say we were like buddy. We didn't like go and hang out. He was still my boss, but we had a relationship that we would not have had in high school. And I noticed this in different jobs as I went along. I became friends with people And we would laugh about how, yeah, we wouldn't have been friends in high school. That just wouldn't have happened, right? And not because of any other reason than just, I think, in high school, you were more caught up in the clique, the group that you were in. And then when you got to the real world, those things kind of didn't matter. Not entirely. I mean, they still do a little bit, but they break down very quickly. Because, like, I might have to work with somebody who was the cool guy or the not cool guy, whatever, right? I might have to work with the goth person, the person that I would have avoided maybe in high school. You have to work with them. And so when you work with people, when you start interacting with people, you realize, like, wow, this person actually is kind of a cool person, regardless of who you thought they were at first. You don't get that opportunity in high school. So I think he's making a huge error here in not recognizing the distinction that always talk it out doesn't work, but always fight it out doesn't work either. And we're going to get more into this in just a moment. Let me play his second video because for some, like, it's weird. You get on Facebook and you watch one video, just one video. And then Facebook's like, oh, you like this video? Here's 12 more just like it. Maybe even from the same creator. And you're like, all right, just call it. And then you have to then you have to take your phone and you're like, man, that video looks interesting, but you have to swipe by it so that the algorithm doesn't, say, oh, you keep wanting more of this video, huh? Let me just show you only this. So you have to swipe by some of the videos that you might actually want to watch so that you can see other ones. I wish somebody would fix those algorithms. Maybe we didn't beat up the nerds. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right, so let me play this second video. Let's see what we got here. Now, this second video I have a little bit fewer issues with.
If a teacher called me and said that my kid was bullying somebody else, I would have a huge fucking problem with that. And I would not be happy. My kid would be disciplined. But if they called me and said that my kid beat the fuck out of a kid that was bullying them, I'd come into the school and I'd celebrate my kid in front of everybody else's face. Good. Fuck that kid. My kid did the right thing because obviously it escalated and you guys weren't there to protect her. You guys weren't there to protect him. My kids will know how to handle business. They will not stand around and be bullied by other kids.
Okay. So in a sense, I agree with him. All right, and I've said this before. My son will absolutely not be a bully, nor will he be bullied. Either one they are just off the table for me. And I will make sure that I deal with each one accordingly if they happen. Now, we're taking measures right now to ensure that they don't happen. He takes jujitsu several times a week. He's really good. He's making his belts and all that good stuff. And I pay attention. And by the way, I actually forgot to pull that up. But let me see if I can't Let me see, because I had his in episode 428, Teaching Children Self-Defense with Coach Cliff Johnson. So go check that out. That was my son's instructor. Or he still is, but that episode was when I got my son's instructor to come on, and we did a dad talk, and we talked mostly about self-defense. We didn't really. My wife gave me a little hard time because she was like, dude, you brought a dad on and all you did was talk about his work. And I'm like, well, his work is important to him. And it was a good conversation. But go check that out. And I actually learned a few things that I didn't realize during the course of that episode. But my son, there's these 3 T's that they talk about. And see if I can remember. He just told me this morning. Talk, tell, and tackle. Yeah, that's it. Talk, tell, and tackle. Which resembles what I learned when I was about 15 and I was taking Taekwondo, which was the ABCs of fighting. You avoid, you back away, and then you conquer, right? And it's basically the same prescription. You're trying to not get into an altercation. Then you do try to use your words. And this is why I think Mr. De Silva is absolutely incorrect, because when you go to martial arts schools, they literally teach you, hey, try to not be in the situation in the first place. If you end up in the situation, try to talk them down, try to de-escalate. And if that doesn't work, then you take physical measures. Then and then only. And Coach Cliff, he has been very clear to all of the kids. He tells them, if I catch you being a bully, if I find out that you're using what we're teaching you here inappropriately, you're not allowed back. And I appreciate that. he also teaches them how to respond to bullies, not by running and telling the teacher necessarily, which I find that advice to be generally terrible advice, because then Cole da Silva would actually be correct. If here's what I remember, and I think this still is in play today. I know I'm old. I get it. Things have changed. Bullies have not. Okay? When you're being teased and picked on, if you go and tell the teacher, then what happens is the kids now get a sense of, oh, you tell, you're a tattletale, you're a snitch, you're a whatever term they're using these days, right? Then you get picked on for being that, right? For not handling your business in some way. And so then it makes it worse. So he is correct in that sense. If you just go and tell, this is why I say all of one or all of the other are not good advice. It's not good. And it's not clear to me whether Cole himself is leaving an opportunity for de-escalation. I will assume in good faith that he does, but his videos don't present that way. And so if he happens to watch his show and he's like, well, dude, you're right. I missed it because those are the videos that you posted. So I could only take what you presented me. Sorry, too bad. Make better videos. Okay. So I'm discussing, the context that I was given, which is beat him up. I'll celebrate it. Okay. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. This is why I'm not trying to beat up on him too bad. I'm not like, oh yeah, Cole's all entirely wrong. I'm just trying to have this conversation. I think we need to have a fuller conversation. We need to talk about this more fully. And I think we can draw some lessons from the martial art and the self-defense classes that are out there who literally teach you avoid, back away, talk it out if you can. And then, hey, if you got to get into a dust up, win. Right. And that's what I want for my son. I don't want him to be a bully and I don't want him to be bullied. And if that means he is backed into a corner where he has to use physical defense, well, then so be it. And I would actually agree and probably say something similar to Da Silva, where if I have to go into a school and I find out that kids were picking on my son, he tried his best to de-escalate, de-escalation didn't work, and it got to the point where he felt, hey, I'm backed in a corner, I have to defend myself, then yes, I will go in and I'll be like, yep, my son took down that bully because he gave the bully a couple of chances, however many chances, and then guess what? The bully didn't pick up on the lesson. He didn't pick up what was being put down. And so he got put down. Too bad. Let me tell you a cool, fun story. My friend Marcus, he has since passed away. He told me this interesting story about his son. His son was being bullied by actually a smaller kid. And he reached out to the school and he was like, look, you guys need to do something about this. And the school, well, they kind of, they did the normal school thing. They were just like, yeah, we'll take care of it, but they didn't really. They probably had a talking to, and they probably, as schools often do, scolded the victim more than the bully or whatever. Or who knows what they did. But whatever they did wasn't working. And my friend Marcus calls him back and he says, look, I've asked you more than once to take care of this bully, and you have not done it. Now, my son is bigger than this bully. And I'm going to tell you right now, you have two options. You either deal with this bully, or I'm going to tell my son to let loose. And when you inevitably suspend him, I will take him out for ice cream every single day that you have him suspended. And we will celebrate. So go figure it out. Like that's what he told them. And strangely enough, they figured it out. And I think this was good, right? I think this is good because, again, the idea of fighting for me is not off the table. In fact, back in episode, I think it was 312. Is it 312? Let me take a look here. I'm pulling it up. Yeah, 321. Back in episode 321, I brought on my friend Maj Toure, who teaches self-defense, handguns, firearm safety, teaches you about your rights. Great guy. You should go check him out. I brought him on after I almost got into a fight with another dad at the park. Now, I'm not going to rehash the story now. You can go and check out that episode. Basically, what I did was, just a very quick summary. There was an altercation between a man and a woman. He was yelling at her, and I stepped in, and I inserted myself. Almost got into a fight with the dad, and then I reached out to Maj Touré and I said, "Hey, man, why don't you come on the show? I'll tell you what happened. You tell me what I did right. You tell me what I did wrong." Right. And he did have some critiques for me. So go check that episode out, 321 Afterthoughts with Maj Touré of an almost fight. It was a fun conversation to have. And it was a tense situation. Like the dad and I were at one point nose to nose. Like when I came home, I showed my wife my glasses, which still had spit on them. And you might be like, if you're the tough guy, if you're the like, oh, I got to fight everybody kind of guy, then you might be like, DL, why didn't you swing at him? Because I didn't have to. That's why. I fight when I absolutely have to. I'm not a teenager anymore. I'm not leaping to go get into a fight these days, right? I'm not afraid to. I've been punched in the face and a few kicked in the chest and, a few other things. So I've had my go around. I know what I can take. I know what a punch to the gut and the face and, kick to the chest and stuff I know what all that feels like. It's not exactly fun. Okay. And I know what it's like to hit somebody else. And I avoid violence when at all possible. Okay. So go check those out. So my credentials are there. Now back to Cole De Silva, back to this whole advice on how we should deal with, bullies and whatnot. In my opinion, which I think is a good opinion, the reason that I think he's wrong and the reason that I wanted to even talk about this is because from the videos, now again, if I watched his podcast, maybe he goes into it more thoroughly and you get a different picture, but I don't have that information. So from what I've seen in these videos, what's missing is that, as I said earlier, most of the violence that somebody will encounter will likely be in a school setting before they turn 18. After that, it drops dramatically. So what do you have? Well, you still have people that are bullying you. We've all had that boss or that coworker that you might like to punch in the face, but you also don't want to go to jail and lose your job and have all these other significant ramifications. In other words, telling somebody to punch a bully might work in school, okay? It's not going to work as you become an adult. And think about this. We'll do easy math here. Let's say you live to be 80 years old, okay? And you graduate at 18, so we'll just call it 20 for even math here while we're doing a live stream. That's 60 years that you live as an adult versus 20 years that you live as a child. And it's actually far less than 20 because like my son is 7 and he has not experienced any bullying. It's not to say that no kids get bullied at the age of 7. I'm sure there are some, but I think you don't generally get most of your bullying until you get around the adolescent and teenage years. So like right now, it's easy for my son to have friends and, find kids to play with. It's literally like, hey, you want to go play? Yeah. And then they start talking about Minecraft and making up whatever, 6, 7, all that good stuff. Okay. It's easy. There's not a lot of conflict right now. I take him to the park and he can just find a friend like within minutes, and he'll play with them for like an hour. We leave and I'm like, oh, what was their name? He's like, I don't know. Like he didn't even bother to find out their name. So the time frame for bullying is really actually far less than the full 20 years or 18 years that you're in school. Okay. And what that means is your life is far more spent in a time where fighting is not really the answer and could be more problematic for you. So do I want my son to learn how to talk it out? Yes. Because that is going to be the majority of, that is going to be the option that's most available to him the majority of the time. However, just because you become an adult doesn't mean that all of a sudden altercations are off the table, right? That's not what that means. I've been in some fights when, I was in my early 20s. So I was an adult, maybe not a very, yeah, not exactly a mature adult, but I was an adult. And even as recent as like a year ago, I almost get into a fight with a man. And there are altercations that happen, gunmen and all kind of things, So the idea that violence goes away as an adult, that's absurd as well. You have to be prepared for it. But more than likely, what ends up happening is that you have to deal with people face to face, and you have to deal with it in a non-violent manner. So what I want my son to learn starting now as a 7-year-old is how to talk it out, because that is a skill that I want him to develop over the years. He's already learning how to fight. He's already learning how to defend himself, right? We take him three days out of the week, and then, sometimes I'll talk about it. Sometimes I'll wrestle with him, whatever. So he's already learning that. That skill's already a work in progress. Now I want him to learn, hey, let's talk it out. How do you de-escalate a situation? What do you do if the kids come up and they call you, like Paul De Silva said, if they call you gay? Yeah, okay. So, and, right? Like, or he can have a quick comeback, like I've said before. I think it was in a city council meeting. I was pushing back against this idea. They were going to pass some legislation, or there was some conversation about limiting speech. You know that I really don't take well to that, right? And so I went in there and I told them literally, I said, my wife is Asian, I am of Native American descent. If somebody calls my wife or my son, somebody says to my family, squinty-eyed featherheads are not welcome. The only thing I want to know is who they are. That way, I can spread the word, don't do business with them. Don't engage with them. These are bad people, right? And I've joked, I don't say it to my son just yet because he's 7 and we want to be careful about what I teach him to say. Because how 7-year-olds are. They're like, they learn something and they just say it ad nauseum. And then and they don't say it necessarily at the appropriate time. There's no discernment whatsoever. I don't want to say none, but it's very little, okay? But if somebody makes fun of him and they're like, oh, why are you squinting? And he can just say, I don't know, round eye. Why is your eyes so wide open? Right? So I think that one of the ways to deal with insults is just to fire back and show people, yeah, it doesn't faze me, and I got a pocket full of insults as well, too. Because what are bullies actually looking for? They're looking to get under your skin. They're looking to make you upset, to maybe make you cry, to make you feel bad. And if you show that, yeah, that shit doesn't work, guess what? You've disarmed them. And you don't necessarily have to fight, right? Now maybe you do. There are some bullies that'll keep poking and keep poking and keep poking. Maybe they'll get physical. And for those bullies, yeah, the time may come where they need a pop in the nose, or, as my son is learning, take them down and put them in a hold and then demand that they apologize and that they leave you alone. Right. And I'll tell you, this is what I love about the instruction that my son is getting. This is not, the instruction that they get is not, hey, only fight if a kid punches you. Like, he actually teaches them, Coach Cliff actually teaches the kids that if a bully keeps harassing you, that you actually, there is a point where they're just harassing. They haven't physically touched you. They're just maybe calling you names or whatever. And then you say, like, hey, are you challenging me to a fight? And you basically force them to either put up or shut up. And the way that the instruction goes is, it's not, I'm going to beat your ass if you say that one more time. It's, are you challenging me to a fight? If you are, then do what you have to do. I'm standing here right now, right here. Do whatever it is you got to do. We'll settle this, right? And so it basically forces the bully to act first. So at first, the first thing it does is it forces the bully to either say, look, I'm challenging you to a fight, or I'm not. If they are challenging you to a fight, then it forces them to act first, right? And I've done a variant of that. There was a time when I was in high school I was in ninth grade, and I don't remember what in the world happened, but this dude and I were quarreling about something, and we were like, all right, well, we'll meet at lunchtime. And the dude was bigger than me. And I was pretty sure I was going to get my ass beat. Okay. Because like he's bigger. I'm in ninth grade. I'm not exactly a great fighter, but I'm not backing down from you either. And so I think ultimately what it ended, there was just, somebody made a comment, another comment was made, and then it blew up into now we got to fight. And I'm not even sure if he was the one that initiated it. Maybe he made a joke and it spiraled from there, whatever. So we go down at lunch, we meet outside, we're standing eyeball to eyeball. Well, it's more like my eyeball to his chin or something like that, right? So we're standing, right up next to each other, fists are clenched, and he's like, swing, bro, swing. And I was like, you're the one that wanted to fight me. You swing. I showed up. You do what you got to do. He didn't really want to fight me. He came down because his friends were goading him, right? And his name was Trent, by the way. And so his friends were like, Trent, you got to fight him, blah, blah, blah. We're standing there and he was like, swing. And I was like, no, I'm not swinging because I just showed up because you challenged me. I'm not the challenger here. You are the challenger. Since you are challenging, you do it. And he refused. He didn't really want to fight, right? But I stood toe to toe to him. And then, I'm not going to lie, I promise you this happened. His friends threw French fries at him and made fun of him because he didn't want to fight me. Here's what I think happened. Here's what I think happened. I think that he didn't really want to fight. He probably could fight. He probably could have beat my ass. He didn't know it. And he probably assumed, man, if this little guy is standing up to me, perhaps he knows how to fight, and perhaps I'm getting myself into more than what I think I'm getting into. Like, that's what I think happened. I think he just assumed that since a little guy was willing to stand up to him, the little guy knew something. Because that's what I've experienced over the years. As a small guy, because I'm today at 48 years old, I am 5'3" and I weigh 120 pounds when I'm soaking wet. Okay. Nobody is intimidated by my stature. Nobody, like not even children, because I usually look up to them physically. Okay. So I think what ultimately happened is that he saw me. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk shit. And then when it comes down to it, we have to stand toe to toe to each other. And then he's like, man, this guy's not backing down. Ooh, I don't know. Should I really swing on this guy, or is he gonna drop me? And nobody wants to be dropped, right? So I assume that he just surmised in his mind it was better to take the L, so to speak, than to take a beat down, which he probably wouldn't have gotten anyway. So whatever. Going back to all this, I'm not opposed to the idea of fight, but I just think that, yes, you can actually work things out. And I have done it. I've told the story. I told it in one of the earlier episodes where I talked about bullying, where in sixth grade, kids made fun of me, right? They made fun of me. And at first, it just continued. And then I used, to Cole's surprise probably, my words to diffuse the situation. They would make fun of me. Back in those days, we called it cracking. Like you were cracking on somebody. You'd make fun of them, right? And the kids were making fun of me. And one day I just, out of nowhere, I said some joke about myself. It was very Eminem-esque. If you've ever watched the movie 8 Mile, toward the end, rapping is all about basically making fun of the other person through rhyme. And toward the end of the movie, he's getting ready to get into the final rap battle, and one of his buddies is like, dude, are you afraid about what they're going to say to you? And you can see like the light bulb goes on in Eminem's head. And so then he comes out, and in the last one, he basically raps about himself. He just like, yeah, I'm white trash. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm blah, blah, blah. And he like throws the microphone down. He's like, yeah, tell everybody something they don't know about me. Right. And then like he stole the dude's thunder. Right. That's what he did. He had no more thunder. And there was nothing left to say. Like, how do you follow that act? How do you follow somebody who's making fun of themselves by making fun of them? It just doesn't work anymore. Right. And that's what I ended up doing. I didn't do it in a rap because I'm mostly white. Well, I guess that comparison that kind of falls flat since I was talking about Eminem. I was one of the white people, which is most of them, that can't rap. Whitish. right? Like, but whatever. I don't rap. Okay. My raps are corny. Like even children make fun of them. Okay. So like that doesn't work. I don't rap. So anyway, I just started making jokes about myself. And then the kids were like, they were stunned. They were like, what's going on here? He's cracking on himself. And that was the end of that. Now that, look, if you're a kid and people are picking on you, all you care about is that they stop. And not every kid is going to be a fighter. And not every bully needs to be fought. So it's worthwhile to learn some other skills. Maybe fire back. Like if they make a funny joke about you, like, damn, that was funny. I'm not gonna lie. You got me on that one, right? Disarm them, because ultimately what they're trying to do is they're trying to hurt your feelings. And if you can show that your feelings aren't hurt, most cases the bully goes away. And there are the few cases where, yep, you got to fight the bully. So I think Cole Da Silva, again, in just the videos that I'm seeing, he's not presenting this correctly. He's not presenting, hey, there is an alternative way. And you don't have to be this badass fighter. You don't have to go in and parade your kid around and be like, my kid beat up your kid. Like, really, dude? How old are you, man? Grow up. I'm not going to parade around that my kid beat up your kid, because I'm just going to look at it and say, like, look, if my kid beats up your kid, I'm sorry that it happened. The presumption here is that my child had no other option, right? So if my child, if Zach comes home one day and he's like, I got in a fight, and I'm like, why did you get in a fight? And he's like, well, these kids were picking on me and they wouldn't stop. I tried to talk to them, and then one of the kids, pushed me or knocked my books out of my hand. So I took a swing at him. I'm going to say, okay, well, if you tried to not get in a fight first and then you felt backed in a corner, then yes, I'm going to stand up for you. And I will go to the school, and I'm not going to parade around and be like, aha, my son beat up your bully. No, I'm just going to be like, look, yes, my son assaulted your kid or fought your kid or however you want to frame it. Yes, my kid punched your kid. Next time, please teach your kid to back off, and we won't have this problem, right? It's simple as that. I'm not looking to dunk on a parent. I'm not looking to dunk on a kid after he's been beat up. I mean, what kind of an adult are you? Yeah, I'm just looking to say, hey, this is an unfortunate situation. Perhaps it doesn't have to happen again. Perhaps they can be friends. Whoa, DL, what? Why would you say that, DL? Let me tell you what happened. Same school. I got picked on in 6th grade. I went to a Catholic school in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And it was either 7th or 8th grade. I don't remember. I want to say it was 8th grade. But this kid, his name was Aaron. He started school there. He was from California. He was the cool California kid, stereotypical California guy that had like the blonde hair, and just was the cool like surfer type dude, had all the cool words and everything, whatever. He was a skater, all that good stuff. And I don't remember why we were beefing anymore. It's probably over something stupid. But we ended up beefing, and we ended up saying, all right, let's meet at the playground. We're going to meet at the park after school. We met at the park, and he whooped my ass. Like, he totally beat my ass. And I believe because I'll never forget this. He pushed me. I fell down because I tripped over something, and I fell down. And then he went to come on and start punching me, and I kicked at him. And then he came over and just started kicking me in the ribs until I started crying. Look, I'm fine. Like, I got my ass beat. Like, whatever. I'm 48 now. I survived. Whatever. I'm doing fine. So anyway, his last kick was, this is for skater fag, and kicked me in the chest really hard. Because, sometimes you really shouldn't say things to people. Maybe I was the bully, right? I don't know. Or maybe I was trying to be a bully and I just wasn't very good at it. But whatever the case, however you want to see it, he beat my ass. Now, the Catholic school, they didn't appreciate this. However, it was not on school property. But that didn't stop them. So they brought us both in when they heard about it. And they said, so you guys want to fight? Well, we don't tolerate that. So here's what's going to happen. You two have to work on a project together. This project is going to be like some giant percentage of the grade. Basically, if you don't complete this project together and it's not completed well, you will not graduate. That's what they told us. So we had to work. We were forced to work together. This is literally the school version of a parent saying, if you two don't stop fighting, I will make you sit on the couch and hold hands, or whatever parents do, right? When I have multiple kids. That's what this was. What happened? We actually became best friends. We went from he whooped my ass to we became best friends over like this project. And then, and like I'm telling you, he came over because he lived down the street from me. Once we became best friends, he came over like every day. We hung out after school. We played together during the summer. We were like 15 years old. We were like besties. Okay. Do you get that kind of information from somebody like Cole's videos? Like his videos? Do you get that? Like, hey, your kid might get in a fight, but there's an opportunity to actually repair the relationship after that. Now, you might say, well, Deal, why would I want to do that? No, that's the wrong question. The question is, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want your kid to grow up with the skill set that, hey, if I have to defend myself, I will. But if I can take a bully and turn it around into a friendship, why not? That is the best, to me, that's the best life to have. That is the best thing that you can teach your kid is that, hey, you can have a disposition. You can carry yourself. Now, look, I'll back up on that. You can carry yourself in such a way that you turn a potential fight into an actual friendship. I think that's a win for everybody. That's a win for both parties. That's possibly a win for society. Because guess what? If that bully is picking on your kid, maybe your kid isn't, quote, the cool kid, right? But somehow your kid manages to disarm them and to turn them into a friend, then that perhaps helps out the next kid that might have gotten bullied. Because now this kid realizes, the bully might realize, hey, you know what? There's more to life than taking whatever angst and anxiety and anger that I have inside and inflicting it upon somebody else. I can just be friends with people. I would rather my son go through life and turn bullies into friends and then hopefully see that bully no longer bullies other people. That makes my son an absolute winner in my eyes. And it makes him way better, way more functional and useful in society. Absolutely, hands down. So no, Cole's advice is dead wrong, or it's at least lacking. One of the two, right? Again, it really depends on the fullness of his position. Now, to back up a little bit, I can't claim any credit necessarily for becoming friends. That was going to be, in the context of my situation, it's all what was forced upon us by the school. They said, you have to work together. He got to know me and he realized, man, this kid, he's not so bad after all. He's actually kind of cool. I kind of like him. And I realized, hey, this bully, he's not such a jerk anyway. He's actually kind of a cool guy. I like him. And then we became best friends. And like back in those days, karate movies were all the rage. Like in the 90s, everybody had a black belt. And like nobody had went to martial arts. Nobody took a class, but we all had black belts. Okay. Or if you didn't want to claim that you had a black belt, then you were just like this expert street fighter, right? That's the way it was. And so he would like call me up and be like, dude, tomorrow, man, I heard that, Bruce Lee movie's going to be on, TBN or whatever. We got to watch it. Like this is the kind of friendship that we had. So absolutely, hands down, I think the best thing that you can do for your child is both. Prepare them if they absolutely have to fight, but also prepare them to use their words, because the reality of the situation is in many cases, they can use those words and make the situation better for them, the bully, and everyone around them. Possible, not a guarantee, right? But I love possibilities. Possibility is possible is better than not at all. And then the other thing is once they become an adult, then they're going to have that skill set to draw upon when they get into the workplace and they've got a workplace bully or a boss who's a bully. And then they'll have the skill set that is appropriate for that setting. Because I promise you, if you get a job and you start punching your manager or your coworker because they're bullying you, because they're calling you gay or something, because nobody taught you, hey, by the way, this mostly goes away once you become an adult because adults don't tolerate it and you get put in jail. Like, I promise you, that's going to be a far better skill set for them to have and more useful than I just taught my kid to fight and I celebrated when they beat up the bully. Okay? But and again, I'm not saying no. I'm not saying never. I'm following the same advice that martial art schools teach. Avoid when you can, back away, and conquer. Or, as my son's school teaches, what was the first one? It was talk. No, I forgot the first T. Hopefully he doesn't. Anyway, let's go to comments and see what you guys are saying in the chat. Oh, let's see what we got here. All right. Hello, Liberty Champion Bullies. Now, I will say this. None of this counts when we're talking about politicians. You should absolutely bully your politicians. Don't threaten them. Don't be foolish. But you should totally bully them. Okay? When they do wrong, because that's how they get the message. So bully them online, right? Don't say anything you wouldn't say to their face. I mean, have some self-respect, have some dignity, but definitely bully politicians. Let's see. TKD, Taekwondo, taught me to use my skills only if I could not walk away. Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I'm not opposed to the idea of fighting, but I prefer not to. I don't want my son to have to fight if he doesn't need to. If he does, I want him to be prepared. But I would rather avoid it. Because here's the thing. If you teach your kid to fight every bully that they meet, they might come across a bully who can fight better. And then your kid's going to go home, like, beat up, and then you're going to have to try to be tough. And then what? You're going to go beat up their dad? Like, what do you tell your kid then when they get beat up? Because I promise you, I've met some bullies that maybe I could have beat up, and I've met some bullies that I could not beat up. And there's always somebody that can fight better than you. Even if you put your kid in self-defense, even if you teach them yourself, there is some kid out there that can beat them up. And you better hope that you didn't teach them to fight a bully who can fight better than them. Just saying. Let's see. Rip Marcus, I know, right? I had to be careful with that story. I didn't want to tear up on the show. Let's see. And it was a group of girls who bullied me when I was about 12 years old that got my parents to put me in Taekwondo. If that event never happened, I might have never started classes. Right? And this is why I advise parents to put them in early before that happens. I don't like to be responsive in that sense. So, and I'm not dogging on your parents, by the way. I'm just saying, like, for you parents out there, for you adults out there, encourage kids to be in self-defense. It teaches them confidence. It teaches them how to defend themselves. And as long as you're in a good school, which I think most of them are, it teaches them how to de-escalate. So perhaps we can deal with this without violence. I hate violence. I tell people, I don't like violence, but I'm not afraid of it. And I try to, the way that I'm teaching my son, the way that I live myself, is that I try to avoid violence up until the point where I have absolutely no choice, because if that violence seriously harms somebody, I want to feel good about myself that I did not jump too quickly, right? So imagine somebody breaks into my home and I shoot them, okay? Is it going to be my immediate thing to run downstairs and start blasting? No. If you back me into a corner, like I might be upstairs and say, hey, we got a gun. Get out. Don't come upstairs. We've called the police, but definitely don't come upstairs because you won't be going back down. And if you come up the stairs and I shoot you, I'm going to sleep well because I know that I did everything I could to avoid killing somebody. And so I'm not going to feel sad about it. See, if I leap too quick, then I have to live with the fact, could I have avoided that? Did I have to take it to that level? Whether it's killing somebody, whether it's seriously harming somebody, or whether it's just even, embarrassing somebody publicly. Like, I try not to do it. I try to leave the door open so that when I walk away, there's not 1 ounce of self-doubt. I did the right thing because I waited until the point I couldn't wait no more, whatever that point is. Let's see. TT Williams says, good morning, good topic. Good morning to you as well. I'm going to go ahead and think Mr. Williams, maybe? But good morning to you. Martial arts also teaches manners, and a lot of kids nowadays have none. Dudette. You're totally right. So in my son's class, they actually are supposed to, like, they get points, and it's based on the parents. So the instructor says, okay, once every quarter, I think, they have a, they call it the Gracie game day. It's just, instead of coming in and doing a lesson, it's more like they come in and they just have a lot of fun. And the kids really like it. And what they're supposed to do is they have this paper, and they're supposed to get points for things that they do. So like if they clean their room without being asked, then they get like maybe 20 points or something like that. If they clean their room after being asked, well, then maybe they only get 10 points. If they don't clean their room, even after being asked, then they get 0 points, right? Stuff like that. So they actually have this point system, and it's basically at the parents' discretion. And the idea is to foster in them good behavior. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. All these good things, talking to people, standing up straight, right? The martial arts that he's learning, tongue tied there. The lessons that he gets from going to jiu-jitsu are far more than just self-confidence and I can defend myself. It's also how to be a good citizen, a good steward. Ultimately, at the end of the day, be a good person in the world in every aspect. Pick up your trash. Don't leave your trash laying on the ground at the park. Speak nicely to people. Defend other people if you can, if it's appropriate. Defend yourself. Speak well to speak proper to your mom and your dad. Don't pick on your brother and sister. Like all these good things. It's great. I love it. So yes, I absolutely, totally agree with martial arts. Don't worry. Most martial arts are not Cobra Kai. All right. Like strike fast, strike hard, strike first, strike hard. That's not the case. That's nice TV stuff and it was fun to watch. But the reality is most schools, I'm sure there's a few out there that are not so good, but most schools teach discipline. They help reinforce good behaviors with your child. So I absolutely recommend it if you can get involved. All right, folks, that's the show that I have for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it inspiring, informative. Do me a favor. Come back by later and just drop a comment in. It helps the algorithm. Let the show percolate in your mind a little bit. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I need to offer a correction. Maybe I was too critical of Cole Da Silva. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm not dogging on him. I'm only going based on what I saw in the videos. What I saw in the videos, I felt was very limiting, and I don't think it was sufficient. And perhaps he has some other opinions where they're more, fully fleshed out, and that's fine. So maybe you've seen some of his videos, and you're like, DL, you kind of misunderstood. I can offer a correction. I'm okay with that. But whatever the case, I'm all ears. That being said, I'm out. I will see you guys Monday with a fresh, brand new bill review. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and buy me a coffee, because every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing you in the next